If you have a Rottweiler or, really any large breed dog, you probably look at them in their absolute prime. Like they're running, jumping, bursting with energy.
Right, they just seem invincible.
Exactly. And you just assume, well, I have years before I even need to think about old age.
Yeah, that's the standard mindset for sure.
But according to veterinary science, if that massive dog of yours is just 7 or 8 years old, they're actually already crossing the threshold into their senior years.
Yep, it happens incredibly fast.
Yeah, the gray muzzle really isn't far away. So, today we're taking a deep dive into exactly what that transition means. We're unpacking a highly detailed transcript from the Rottweiler Health Academy.
Which is a Vital Pet broadcast, right?
Yes, exactly. A Vital Pet broadcast that's completely dedicated to senior canine care. And I have to say, honestly, seeing you broadcasting today from this cozy, sunlit living room, complete with a dog bed and a chalkboard in the background, it is just the perfect visual anchor for this topic.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it just felt like the right atmosphere for this material,
It really is.
Because the environment we provide for our older dogs, it dictates so much of their physical and mental well-being.
Okay, let's unpack this because the central tension the source brings up is something, honestly, every single dog owner wrestles with.
Oh, absolutely. Every day.
Right. It's like, how do you, as an owner who sees this animal every single day, how do you accurately tell the difference between ordinary natural slowing down and, actionable health changes that actually require a vet?
Yeah. And we tend to default to a really passive mindset with that.
We do. We really do.
We see a change in behavior and we just lump it under this massive umbrella of, well, aging. And we assume nothing can be done.
Just, oh, they're getting old.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But what's fascinating here is the core philosophy this source puts forward. They argue that aging is not a disease state.
Right.
It's simply a distinct biological phase. And if we understand the mechanisms of that phase, we can actively support it.
Which is such a massive paradigm shift.
It really is. And, while this text specifically targets Rottweilers, the framework they provide for observing and supporting an aging animal,
Yeah.
it's fundamentally a masterclass in mammalian biology.
But to actively support them, we first have to, well, recognize when that biological phase actually begins.
Right, the timeline.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
as we mentioned off the top, the timeline is jarring. A large breed hitting their senior years at 7 or 8 years old. I mean, that's a radically different trajectory than, say, a small terrier.
Oh, completely. A terrier might be considered merely middle-aged at 8.
Right. And it completely blindsides a lot of owners.
It does, because you're looking at an animal that still appears really robust. But internally, the cellular and structural realities have entirely shifted.
The analogy that immediately jumps to mind here, for me anyway, is automotive.
Okay, I like that.
Like if you look at a heavy-duty pickup truck versus a lightweight compact car, the pickup is built for incredible power, right? It has this massive, heavy steel frame.
Right, a lot of mass.
Exactly. And because of the sheer mass of that frame, the wear and tear accumulates completely differently. The suspension, the engine, they're constantly working harder simply to support and propel its own weight.
Yes, the mechanical load is huge.
Right. So it requires earlier, more intensive maintenance to keep running smoothly compared to a vehicle that weighs, a third as much.
That is a perfect analogy. The physics of that map perfectly onto canine biology.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Larger breeds carry immense physical mass.
Yeah.
From a developmental standpoint, they undergo explosive, rapid growth in their first 18 months just to build that frame.
Oh, wow. So it taxes them early on.
Heavily. It requires rapid cellular division. That early life trajectory taxes the body. And as they reach maturity, just the sheer mechanical stress of moving 80 to 100 plus pounds every day.
That's a lot of weight.
It is. It accelerates the wear on the cardiovascular system and especially the articular cartilage in their joints.
So their biological clock is just essentially ticking faster.
Exactly, because the systemic load is so much higher.
But, okay, if that systemic load is exhausting them as they age, I want to challenge the source's interventionist tone here for a second.
Sure, go ahead.
If my large dog is getting older, and I notice, they take an extra minute to get off their bed in the morning, shouldn't I just let them rest?
It's a really common instinct to just let a tired dog sleep.
Right. I mean, if the frame is tired, pushing them seems counterproductive.
It seems that way,
Mm-hmm.
but the text draws a really rigid clinical line between an animal that is slower and an animal that is struggling.
Oh, okay. Slower versus struggling.
Exactly. Those are two entirely different biological states.
So define the biological difference between those two states for me.
Okay, so slower is a natural mechanical decline, taking an extra moment to rise or being a bit more deliberate, navigating a staircase.
Just being careful.
Right. That happens because the connective tissues lose some elasticity over time. That is totally normal.
Okay. And struggling.
Struggling, on the other hand, is an active inflammatory or pain response.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. If a dog exhibits persistent stiffness that does not dissipate after they take a few steps, or, and this is key, if you see a sudden reluctance to engage in activities they clearly still want to do.
Like they want to chase the ball, but they stop themselves.
Exactly. That indicates a pathological issue. Biologically, what you're likely seeing is the breakdown of synovial fluid.
Which is the lubricant in the joints, right?
Right. And that leads to bone-on-bone friction and an inflammatory loop of osteoarthritis that requires medical mitigation, not just extra sleep.
That makes total sense. And when we realize those joints are taking a heavier beating earlier in life, the immediate biological imperative becomes protecting them.
Absolutely.
Which means we can't just let them become entirely sedentary, right?
Yeah.
Because the muscles act as the primary shock absorbers for those joints.
Precisely. The source emphasizes a fundamental paradigm shift in how you exercise your dog.
Okay.
During their prime, exercise is anabolic. You're actively trying to build cardiovascular fitness, increase stamina, add muscle mass.
Right, running them hard.
Yeah, but in the senior years, your goal shifts entirely to preservation. You're just trying to maintain the muscle tissue that is stabilizing the skeleton.
Which means the actual routine has to change. Like the weekend warrior routine, say a massive 2-hour hike on Saturday and nothing during the week.
Oh, that's terrible for them.
Right. That probably does way more harm than good for an older joint.
It causes massive inflammatory spikes. Preservation requires shorter, highly frequent, low-impact movements.
So just spreading it out.
Yeah, multiple gentle walks throughout the week. That keeps the joints lubricated and the muscles engaged without pushing the skeletal structure past its load-bearing capacity.
Okay, so usually the math on this is pretty straightforward, right? If an animal is moving less and burning fewer calories, you restrict their diet to keep their weight down, which protects the joints.
That's the conventional wisdom.
Right. But the source indicates that simply cutting calories based on the bathroom scale in senior large broods is actually a dangerous trap. Why is that?
It is a very dangerous trap. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it really comes down to a metabolic shift that happens as mammals age.
Okay, what kind of shift?
The text highlights a phenomenon we can call the muscle fat illusion.
The muscle fat illusion. So, wait, the dog can be losing critical support tissue, but still weigh exactly the same at the vet.
Exactly. And this is driven by sarcopenia, which is the age-related involuntary loss of skeletal muscle mass.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, as the dog's basal metabolic rate drops and their hormone profiles change, protein degradation begins to outpace protein synthesis. So they lose that dense, heavy muscle tissue.
But they don't lose weight.
No, because simultaneously their metabolism is slowed, so they start storing lighter, fluffier adipose tissue, fat.
Oh, so the structural integrity of the dog is literally vanishing and being replaced by dead weight, but the raw number on the scale remains perfectly stable.
Yes, exactly. The scale completely masks the physiological deterioration.
That's terrifying, honestly.
It is. You might think, oh, I'm managing their weight perfectly, while their body composition is actively failing.
So what do we do instead?
This is why the text stresses the critical importance of veterinary body condition assessments.
Ah, okay.
A professional palpating the ribs, feeling the spine, and evaluating the muscle density over the hindquarters. That tells you the truth about their physical condition. The scale tells you almost nothing useful on its own.
That is such a critical distinction to make. But, you know, while we can try to outpace muscle loss with adapted exercise and body condition monitoring, there is another physical reality we just cannot exercise away.
The senses.
Right, the gradual dulling of their senses. When the eyes and ears start to fail, the dog can't adapt to the environment anymore.
No, they really can't.
So we have to adapt the environment to them.
And that requires a profound shift in owner empathy. The source points out specific markers of sensory decline, right? Dogs becoming less responsive to subtle acoustic cues.
Like not hearing you come in.
Exactly. Startling easily because they didn't hear you enter a room. Or developing a milky cloudiness in their eyes.
Right, which owners often notice.
Yeah, which is often lenticular sclerosis, a normal hardening of the lens. Though I should add, it must always be evaluated by a vet to rule out cataracts or glaucoma.
Of course. But if we think about how an animal experiences spatial mapping, Losing those senses in a familiar house must be incredibly disorienting.
It's terrifying for them.
I bet. It's like waking up and someone has taken your smartphone and completely scrambled your home screen.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Right. The icons are different, the folders are moved, you go to tap your email and it opens the camera.
And you're just lost.
Yeah. You'd feel immense frustration and hesitation trying to navigate a system you use to operate purely on muscle memory.
That is exactly what happens to a dog's proprioception and spatial memory. Their internal map of the living room suddenly just doesn't match the physical feedback they're getting.
So they bump into things.
Yes. And the source focuses heavily on the pragmatic adaptations owners must make to bridge that gap.
But practically speaking, what does that actually look like? Because that sounds incredibly expensive and intrusive. Like, are we talking about full home renovations just because a dog is getting older?
Oh, no, no.
Or are there more pragmatic middle grounds?
It did not require a contractor. The text advocates for simple architectural solutions to biological problems.
Okay, like what?
If their hearing is fading, you change your physical approach. You ensure you enter their field of vision before touching them to avoid a massive spike in stress hormones from being startled.
Oh, that makes sense. Just walk where they can see you.
Right. And you transition to exaggerated hand signals combined with verbal commands. And most importantly, you freeze the layout of the house.
Freeze it.
Yeah. You do not move the coffee table. You do not relocate their food bowls.
Because if you move a chair, their internal map still tells them it's an open pathway.
Exactly.
And their blurry vision won't correct them until they literally hit it.
Precisely. You also have to address the flooring. Hardwood or tile floors become a major hazard when a dog's joint stability and confidence wane.
Right, they slip and slide.
Yeah. Putting down non-slip runners provides tactile pathways that they can feel beneath their paws. It guides them safely.
Like a textured roadmap for the house.
Yes. And utilizing ramps for cars and deeply cushioned orthopedic beds to support resting joints. These are relatively low-cost environmental tweaks that drastically reduce their daily cognitive and physical load.
And that's so important because the physical load isn't the only thing changing. There are profound internal shifts happening in their cognition and their emotional landscape that we have to account for.
Canine cognitive aging is a deeply complex process. The text notes that it strongly mirrors human cognitive decline.
Really? In what ways?
Biologically, older dogs can accumulate beta-amyloid plaques in the brain, very similar to what is seen in early Alzheimer's in humans.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So subtle signs like slight confusion in a new park or mild shifts in sleep architecture are to be expected.
But the clinical line between slowing down and struggling applies to the brain too, right?
Very much so. If the dog exhibits severe disorientation in a room, they have slept in for a decade.
Right, getting stuck in corners and things.
Yes. Or if their sleep-wake cycle completely inverts, which is a condition similar to sundowning in humans, or if their fundamental personality and way of interacting with you changes drastically, those are red flags.
That's more than just getting old.
Exactly.
Right.
That crosses from normal cognitive aging into canine cognitive dysfunction. And that requires veterinary pharmacological support.
Well, here's where it gets really interesting. The text actually prescribes mental stimulation to combat this cognitive decline.
Yes, they do.
And my immediate reaction to reading that was skepticism, honestly. We hear all about training puppies to teach them boundaries and commands. But an 8-year-old dog already knows how to sit and stay. Why on earth are we training a senior dog?
Because you have to separate the concept of training from the concept of compliance.
Oh.
When you run a senior dog through short training refreshers, or more importantly, when you introduce scent games where they have to sniff out a hidden treat, you are not trying to teach them a novel trick.
Right.
You are engaging in strict neurological maintenance.
So we're essentially forcing the brain to fire up new pathways, like giving them a crossword puzzle to stall cognitive decay.
That is exactly what you are doing. The olfactory bulb in a dog's brain is massive, and it's directly wired into the regions responsible for memory and emotion.
Wow.
Yeah. By engaging their nose, you're promoting neuroplasticity, which is the brain's ability to form new neural connections.
That is incredible.
But this raises an important question that the text addresses beautifully.
Yeah.
The role of emotional support.
Sure.
Rottweilers and most companion breeds are deeply bonded animals. They're hyper-attuned to their owners.
Oh yeah, they operate like shadows. They completely regulate their own state based on our proximity.
Yes. And when a dog's sensory input begins to fail, when they can't see or hear clearly, their baseline anxiety naturally spikes.
Well, sure, they don't know what's going on.
Right, their cortisol levels rise because the world feels unpredictable. In that state, their emotional bond to you is the strongest grounding mechanism they have.
Just being near you.
Exactly. Gentle, patient companionship, simply sharing physical space, acts as a profound physiological regulator for the animal. It actively lowers their heart rate and mitigates that stress response.
Because we are dealing with all of these invisible internal shifts, from cognitive decay to muscle loss to sensory fading, we can't just rely on watching them run around the yard to gauge their health anymore.
No, visual checks aren't enough.
Right. The diagnostic timeline has to radically shrink, and the frequency of medical care has to fundamentally change.
A year is an agonizingly long time in the biology of a senior giant breed.
It's like several human years.
Exactly. The standard annual checkup is insufficient. The source highlights that most veterinarians recommend doubling visits to every 6 months for seniors.
And what exactly are we looking for in those visits? Because the source mentions blood work as a primary tool.
Routine blood panels are critical. They allow you to track organ function longitudinally.
Okay, so tracking over time.
Right. You are looking at BUN and creatinine levels to catch renal insufficiency before, say, 70% of the kidney function is lost. You are monitoring liver enzymes like ALT and AST. You are checking thyroid function.
So it's very proactive.
Yes. You want to catch the subtle biochemical markers of organ failure before they manifest as a clinical crisis, where the dog suddenly stops eating or collapses.
The source also zeroes in on dental care, which feels easy to overlook when you're so worried about kidneys and hips.
It is easy to overlook.
But a decade of chewing takes an immense physical toll.
Well, the mechanical wear on the teeth is one factor, but the biological threat is periodontal disease.
Oh, from the bacteria.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The chronic buildup of plaque and tartar harbors massive bacterial loads. In a senior dog, those bacteria can regularly enter the bloodstream through inflamed gums, creating systemic inflammation and directly attacking the heart valves and kidneys.
Wait, bad teeth can damage their heart?
Yes, severely. Dental health in a senior dog is not about a pretty smile. It is about protecting major organs from chronic bacterial infection.
Wow, I never thought about it like that.
And furthermore, their diet must adapt. They require highly digestible proteins to combat that sarcopenia we discussed, often with carefully balanced caloric density to prevent fat accumulation and potentially softer textures if their dentition is compromised.
Let me play the voice of the listener for a second here.
Sure.
Hearing all of this, the twice-yearly diagnostics, the blood panels, tracking liver enzymes, managing sarcopenia, redesigning the house with non-slip runners, managing cognitive decline, it sounds like a full-time medical job.
It sounds like a lot.
It is. How is a standard owner supposed to juggle this biological balancing act without completely burning out?
The source is remarkably pragmatic about that exact risk, actually. They suggest leveraging technology, like the VitalPet app, simply to offload the mental burden of tracking medications, weight trends, and appointment schedules.
Just automate the tracking.
Right. But the ultimate safeguard against owner overwhelm is the text's core philosophy regarding quality of life.
How do they define that, medically speaking?
They define it by explicitly stating that it is not a rigid mathematical algorithm.
Okay.
Quality of life is not a sterile checklist where a dog has to score a certain number of points to justify their care. It is a highly subjective, holistic evaluation of the whole picture.
So we are zooming out from the blood panels to look at the animal as a complete organism.
Yes. Is the dog still finding joy in their daily routine? Are they eager for their meals? Do they still seek out your companionship even if they can only walk to you rather than run?
Right, are they happy?
Exactly. Are they able to rest and sleep without signs of chronic pain? The diagnostics, the blood work, the joint supplements, the diet, they are merely the tools we use to support that baseline joy.
They aren't the end goal themselves.
Precisely. You are not expected to be a veterinary diagnostician. Your primary job is to be an expert observer of your specific dog's baseline demeanor.
So what does this all mean? When we synthesize all these biological mechanisms and practical tweaks, what is the core mission for you, the listener, as your dog enters this phase?
The overarching takeaway is that aging in a large breed is a natural biological transition, not a crisis.
Right. By fundamentally shifting our mindset from building fitness to preserving structure, by recognizing the difference between a dog that is just slow and a dog that is in pain.
Exactly.
Adjusting their movements to protect their joints, using body condition rather than the scale to monitor their mass, altering the physical architecture of our homes to support their fading senses, and tightening the timeline on their medical diagnostics.
A lot of little shifts.
It is, but by doing all that, we have immense power to ensure these animals experience a dignified, comfortable final chapter.
It is an incredibly demanding phase of ownership, no question.
Yeah.
But it is also the most rewarding because you are actively managing their comfort when they need you the most. And, analyzing this comprehensive framework leaves me with a thought that extends slightly beyond the source text itself.
Oh, what's the thought?
Well, we pour an astonishing amount of scientific research, emotional empathy, and practical energy into engineering the perfect environment for a senior dog. Right?
Yeah, I really do.
We prioritize their daily comfort. We carefully maintain their neuroplasticity without demanding high performance. We mitigate their environmental stress. And we recognize the deep physiological healing power of simple companionship.
Yeah.
When you look at how beautifully compassionate and scientifically grounded that approach is, perhaps observing how we care for our aging dogs is the absolute perfect blueprint for how we should be designing our own environments, our own medical care, and our own relationships as we navigate healthy human aging.
Wow. We should extend the exact same grace and structural support to ourselves that we so willingly give to our pets. That is a brilliant framework to keep in mind the next time you look at that graying muzzle on the rug. Aging isn't an ending. It is just a biologically different way to walk together.
I completely agree.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Pay attention to the subtle shifts in your dogs and take care of yourselves.